Welcome to this overview of IBM Planning Analytics self-service. If you're currently struggling to solve your planning and analysis problems with spreadsheets, if you don't have time to learn one of the specialist products on the market, and if you don't want to be reliant on IT or other expert specialists in your organization, then self-service could be the tool for you. Here I've logged into my self-service workspace as Andy. I can see a number of projects. Any user in self-service can create a project. Projects are private until you choose to share them. I can see in this case that my colleague Chris has shared an expense plan project with me. I can see that I have a team resource planning project, and additionally I can see that my colleagues Julia and Martin are currently active in that project. And I can see that I have a travel cost analysis project that I've created that I've currently not shared with anyone else. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and create a new project. I could create a blank project, which I could build entirely myself. But what we're going to do is deploy one of these existing templates that are going to give me a head start and contain pre-built structures, specimen data, and process guidance in particular areas. I'm interested in margin planning, so I'm going to select that template. I see more information about the template to help me decide if it's appropriate, and then I can go ahead and create a project based on that template. I'm going to give it an alternate name, and when I hit start planning, the project is immediately created for me based on that template. And you can see each template that is created has a series of guides presented on the right hand side here to lead me through the process of configuring that template for my own use. To start off with, we're going to review the book, which is the vehicle I use to interact with my data. So this book has a number of sheets. You can see that the first of these sheets, our summary, is giving us both a regional view along the top and a product-based view along the bottom of our data. And what you'll notice is that these charts are giving us a 24-month trend view of a particular metric, so it's gross margin percentage in this case by region at the top and by product at the bottom, whereas the grids on the left are giving a tabular form of data, again with the region above and the product-based view below. We've set this up so that the the grids can be synchronized. So you see there I've swapped from 2016 back to 2015 data, and the grids have updated. Of course the charts don't update because they're already showing the full 24-month horizon. But if, for instance, I wanted to get more detail and the performance of my camping equipment product range, I could double click to drill, and as well as the grid updating, both of the charts update. The lower chart now shows me the breakdown of my products in that camping equipment range, and the upper chart here is now filtered just on camping equipment. The guide in this template will lead us through the 5 steps of self-service: model, import, display and execute, share and maintain. And in this series of videos we'll lead you through each of those steps in more depth. For now, we're going to focus on the model step. Let's now go ahead and use the guide to examine the model steps. The first of those is the ability to configure the way that time is used. We can see here that we have the option to select the start and end dates. In this case, by default, we have a year of actuals from last year, starting January 2015, and we're planning ahead to the end of the current year, 2016. We get the ability to change the syntax of the way that the members are created for our time dimension, and to preview how the time dimension is going to look. And the time dimension can be expanded at a future date to accommodate a longer planning horizon. We can configure the way that versions are set up. So in this case, we have a current plan. We've created a snapshot of that reflecting a plan that we've previously created, and we have the ability to create a variance between the two. And we're going to come back to this in more detail in the maintain step. We can also go and look at the structures that make up our project. The structures being the cubes that hold our data, and the dimensions that describe our data and which are used in those cubes. To recap, these cubes, assumptions and gross margin, were created for us from the template, but we can adapt those and we can add to them. So for instance, if I wanted to do some more detailed analysis of my historic revenue, what I would be able to do here is go and quickly create a dimension, maybe to represent channels, and I could add a new cube which I'm going to name revenue analysis, and I could decide that that revenue analysis cube was going to hold data at the level of month. I want to use my versions dimension, products, regions, and additionally this channels dimension that I'm going to create, and I can apply those changes. The revenue analysis cube has now been created for us. Now let's see how calculations can be applied to those cubes to express the business logic that we need. When we come to this screen, we see a summary of all of the calculations in our model, calculations being created between the measures that are automatically associated with each cube. For example, in our gross margin cube, we have a measure called revenue before discount, and we can see here that it's always calculated as the product of volume and unit price for both historic periods, indicated by the green, and for future periods, indicated by the pink. By contrast, it's also possible, as in the case of discount percentage here, to configure things so that we apply a formula for historic periods. We apply the same formula at the aggregate level, because the discount percentage is a ratio, but we leave future periods without a formula, which means they remain open for input. And in this case, that's because we actually key and plan those figures for the second year in our time horizon. Let's see how easy it is to actually go ahead and input these formulae. So if I were to remove this formula here, I know that's volume times unit price. I very simply need to type a snippet of the name of the measure I want to refer to, and I can quickly create my formula. It's also possible in this environment to rename any object, so the cube, the dimension names, the names of the dimension members themselves. So for example, I created the revenue analysis cube earlier on, which had a default measure created for me, and I can just very quickly rename that to revenue. Next, let's review the import step. The guide shows us that we can import a number of things. We can import both dimensions that describe our data and the data itself that gets imported into the cubes. In this example, we're going to have a look at the products dimension that already exists in our template. We could import into this dimension from flat files, which we just need to browse and locate. Those are quickly uploaded to the cloud for us, and then we need to perform a simple mapping to identify the columns from our source file that are going to be used to construct our dimension. And to confirm that we've done that correctly, we're able to get a preview of how the dimension will look before we then go and complete the import. In your case, if you are updating your own organization's data into the template, then the specimen data that's supplied with the template would be retained. So you could either keep that for the purposes of test driving the template, or you could remove it, leaving only your own organization's data. Now that we've examined the model and import steps, next let's examine how it is that a user can create and edit their own books to enable them to display their data and execute on their plan. Now these sheets were already constructed in my project, but what I'll show you now is how it is I can go about constructing one of my own. I'm going to call this product trend, say, and I'm going to go and grab my data from my gross margin cube. And let's imagine that what we want here is a view. So by default this is giving us all the measures that describe all of our projects across all regions by month. It might be that actually I want a quarterly view in this grid, so I can just go down to the quarter level. I don't want to see the total of the 2 years. I'm going to hide that. And it might be that what I want below this is a chart that's showing me my sales volumes, but maybe with a product breakdown. And what I can do is very quickly duplicate this. There you see, it's populated immediately below. And I want a product-based breakdown of volume. So I'm going to drag volume and swap it with products. And I don't want to see all the detail for my products. All I want is my top level product and the highest level of product category that I have below that. So I'm going to double click to focus in on the total of my products and my main product families. And then additionally I want the lower chart just to focus on the individual months of 2016, my 2016 plan. I've got a different way of doing that if I want to. I can quickly come into this set editor. I can highlight 2016 and bring in its lowest level children, and then 2016 itself I don't want to see. And now what I can do is select myself a stack column, and there I have a stack column chart showing me the month over month volumes, sales volumes forecasted for 2016. Next up, let's see how easy it is to share the plan that we've built with our colleagues to get them to assist us with our planning and analysis. So again, the guide step brings us to the screen where we're able to share, and we can invite team members into our project. In this case, I'm going to invite my colleagues Martin, Julia and Chris, and I'm going to write them a note that says, please help me compile the plan for 2016, paying attention to discount levels this year. And I can choose the permissions that each of those colleagues of mine has. So I'm going to invite Chris to be a modeler. So Chris will have full access to change the structures and update the logic. I'm going to invite Julia to be a contributor. So Julia will be able to enter data in my project, and she'll be able to see the logic I have but not change any of my logic or my structures. And finally, Martin is going to have viewer access. So he'll be able to see the data in my project, but he won't be able to update it. So I can go ahead and share, and Chris, Julia and Martin will be notified by email with a link to come back to the application. Now I have an additional choice here, and I'm going to check this to allow contributors and viewers, in this case like Julia and Martin, to share the project on. So this allows me to delegate out the access. So if I'm happy for Julia and Martin to be able to additionally share with other colleagues, they'll be able to do so, but only up to the level of access they already have. So for instance, Julia would be able to share as a contributor or as a viewer with other users. And we can see that now if Julia decides that she needs additionally to share the project with Jeff. So let's log out as Andy. And then instead, let's log back in as Julia. We see that Julia has an alert that the gross margin project has been newly shared with her, if this is the first time she's come back in. And Julia can come to the sharing page, and then she in turn can invite Jeff. And if we recall, Julia is a contributor, so when she comes in, she's able to grant Jeff either contributor or viewer rights. She wants help from Jeff to compile the plan, so she's going to share as a contributor. The final step we're going to walk through is maintain. What we want to do here is to make it easy for you to structure the steps that you would routinely need to perform as you execute on the plan with your colleagues. So let's use the guide to drill into the maintain steps. There's a number of actions here we could perform. We're going to focus on maintenance of the versions in our plan. We can see here we have a current plan at any point in time. That is our live version. We've taken a snapshot of that on the 13th of April and we've named it previous plan, and we have a variance that computes the delta between the two. What we can additionally do now is take another snapshot here of our current plan. And we're going to rename that January forecast. And snapshots are locked by default when they're created. What we're going to do now, because we want to roll our plan forwards, is change the switchover period. This is the period, the setting that determines where the first forecast period is in our project, and we're now going to roll that forwards to reflect April 2016. So let's see how those changes have affected our project. Let's go and look at our gross margin cube. So we're looking at the discount percentage measure, and you can see here that now that we've rolled the switchover period forwards to April, we can key our discount percentage for the current plan from April onwards, but for the previous periods you can see it's calculated. You can see that our previous plan and our January forecast are locked, and the variance is a calculated item. Returning back to our guide, let's look at one additional maintain step. We have the ability to let users back up their project. This is a facility to allow you to create a point-in-time backup of your project whenever you need to. I can give the backup a name. And I can very simply create that backup. So now I have a point-in-time backup of my project that I could refer back to at any point. If I needed to, I can reinstate it, or if I wanted to, I could also use that backup as the starting point for a brand new project. So having seen IBM Planning Analytics self-service in action, let's take a look at the benefits. The first main category is in cost reduction. It'll save you time to build and maintain planning and analysis models. It's much easier to import your data and your structures, and it's very easy to involve people in your projects. You'll also realize a hardware saving. The tool is in the cloud, so you'll save on hardware costs and the maintenance and update processes around managing hardware. We're sure that you'll see value from better information. We're familiar with the idea that the value of information diminishes over time. Self-service makes it faster to update your plan, whether it's from imported data or from input provided by colleagues. We believe it'll be more accurate than spreadsheet equivalents. The way that logic is set in self-service makes it really easy to relate outcomes to causes if you're performing analysis, or drivers to outcomes if you're performing planning. And that's because we express logic in your terms, not in obscure cell references. And we saw how you can use attractive graphical books and logical guide steps to ensure people are led through their planning and analysis activity using simple steps that are relevant to them in their role. We also believe you'll experience better outcomes. People get access to information quickly to enable them to make better decisions, ensuring that they can allocate scarce resources to the most fruitful opportunities in your organization. It's really easy for you to share plans and analyses with your colleagues, and that's going to help you achieve better alignment through your business, both horizontally across functions and vertically up and down the organization. And the speed with which you can deploy and adapt your models will allow you to adapt to change in the business environment more rapidly and with confidence. Thanks very much for watching.